On average, species have declined by 69% since 1970, with human activity pushing ecosystems to irreversible tipping points. So what could possibly be the answer to this? Capitalism, brought to you by the World Economic Forum. So, Fintech. It's not a word I see every day in my career. Granted, I try and stay as far away as possible from the finance bro world. But in the past few months, I've noticed a surprising trend in the nature space. More and more individuals who advocate for rewilding are starting to chuck around terms previously only heard in the hyper-capitalist environments of Wall Street.
I have X on it, 86.25 6 months ago. Today it is trading at 36.5.
Fintech, credit, investment, asset, token. And these words are being paired with words which describe concepts directly connected to the earth. Nature, green, ecosystem, carbon, landscape. Companies taking words such as nature and green and stamping them onto things that have inherently nothing to do with nature is nothing new. Greenwashing has been around for decades, but usually involves a company, such as a fast fashion brand, producing a product which damages or pollutes the environment in some way, but then slapping words such as eco or sustainable onto the marketing of this product to make it seem less harmful than it actually is. But what I've come across recently is something quite different. Ecologists, people who, as a fundamental, should understand how absolutely fucked the ecology of the planet is as a result of our profit-driven system, are now turning to the finance bro world to cure our ecological crisis. Ah yes, because curing the collapse of the planet's ecology due to late-stage capitalism by generating more profit is a brilliant idea. So what actually is nature fintech? Well, one green fintech company describes itself as combining cutting-edge ecosystem analytics with advances in new green digital assets, such as credits, to support nature and climate-positive commitments. Okay, but what does that actually mean? It means that credits and tokens, referred to as green digital assets, which represent an improvement in biodiversity, can be sold and potentially traded, just like an NFT. Remember those? The unique art pieces you can buy as a digital token and then trade and sell as if you're playing the stock market? Basically, these nature fintech companies want to kind of do the same, but instead of trading a piece of art, they want to trade an improvement in biodiversity. Got some land? You can assess its baseline biodiversity, stick a beaver in there, wait for the beaver to do its magic, measure the improvement in biodiversity that's been created by the beaver, and then sell the difference as a credit or token. These credits represent a document that states that biodiversity has been improved on a piece of land, which can be sold to companies such as development companies, who they themselves might be building on some land and thus decreasing its biodiversity so that they can mitigate for that. In the UK, there is a new scheme called Biodiversity Net Gain, which dictates that any development or building on a site must improve that site's biodiversity or habitat by 10%. If not, this 10% improvement in biodiversity must happen elsewhere. Thus, a sudden market for these biodiversity credits opens up. Companies who want to develop on a site but not improve its biodiversity due to financial or logistical difficulties can still do so, but then just simply buy a biodiversity credit or token which has proven that biodiversity has been improved elsewhere. Let's do a little theoretical test. Let's say we were trapped in the hellscape that is late-stage capitalism, with no way of escaping the never-ending loop of economic growth and profit generation. It certainly does feel like that sometimes. In such a world, creating biodiversity credits and combining them with policies such as the UK's Biodiversity Net Gain would be a useful way of ensuring we are restoring nature and thus can continue extracting from it to continue growing our resources and economy. So here are the pros to this scheme. 1, if you're a landowner, you can earn money just by rewilding your land. Plonk some trees down, cash in those carbon credits. Plonk down a beaver or re-wiggle that stream, cash in those biodiversity credits. Great, now you've got a nice place to do some wildlife watching and have a nice picnic, and you've also managed to cash in some spare change from doing so. 2, if you're a construction company who can only see the short term and really wants to build on that patch of woodland over there but doesn't want to have to try and improve the biodiversity of the site at the same time, you can still do so by simply buying a credit or token that says biodiversity has been improved elsewhere. The cost of those credits compared to the money you're going to raise by selling those new 5-bedroom luxury houses is probably pretty inconsequential anyway. 3, and if you're a wolf of Wall Street, well, I'm not quite sure how that would work, actually, except that you'll probably be sitting comfortably in your penthouse playing the stock markets with these new biodiversity credits and being pretty smug about yourself as the money rolls in. No, but in all seriousness, there are economists that say natural capital can be a positive thing for society. Here are the real reasons they give for this. Number one is that putting nature on the board makes it more valued by everyone and puts it on par with financial and social capital. Number two is that slapping the potential for profit onto nature restoration makes it incredibly more appealing to corporations, development companies, landowners, and the wolves in their Wall Street offices. And number three, the vast amount of money unlocked by making nature restoration appealing to those with the big bucks will scale up nature restoration to the speed that the planet needs, which otherwise wouldn't be achieved by the desires of mere mortals, apparently. And yet still, with all of these pros, there's one main thing that stands out to me here. Capitalism isn't actually a known law of the universe. It's just a social construct. Phew, that felt good to say. But like, why are we all just sitting here pretending that any of this stuff actually makes any sense? Credits, investments, land ownership, even money, these are all just fabrications of our capitalist system and can just as easily be unfabricated. Because capitalism isn't a known law of the universe. Humans have in fact been living in many different economical and social structures for millennia. And when it's quite clear that a certain economic system isn't doing us any favours, why continue it? Why try and fix a deep-rooted, absolutely systemic f***up with more of the same thing that got us here in the first place? Isn't there an expression for that? Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
But the definition of insanity is insanity is doing the exact same fucking thing over and over again, expecting shit to change. That is crazy.
Have you heard of the cobra effect? The story goes that in colonial India there was a cobra infestation. So the British colonists created a bounty for dead cobras to incentivize people to kill the snakes. But instead, people started farming the cobras and bringing the dead farmed cobras to the British to collect their bounties. Eventually the British caught on and cancelled the bounties, meaning many were now left with cobra farms they had absolutely no reason to have. So of course, they did the only thing they could. They released them back into the wild, making the cobra infestation even greater than it had been in the first place. It sounds to me like creating credits to try and restore nature might create the same kind of parable. Something like, on Earth there was an ecological crisis. So corporations started assigning monetary value to the restoration of nature, to incentivize people to restore biodiversity, then trade in this restoration to make a quick buck. But instead, people started farming this nature restoration and biodiversity improvements. Once their credits were sold, they would accidentally set fire to the land, resetting it to a level of 0 biodiversity so that they could prove that they're improving biodiversity once again. Eventually, the corporations caught on, and the value of biodiversity credits plummeted to nothing, meaning no one saw any incentive anymore to keep restoring biodiversity. They started using their land even more intensively than they had done before. Obviously, this isn't the only way such a situation could go, but the message remains. Capitalist solutions to capitalist problems just simply are not going to work. In fact, I have a few more specific concerns with the whole shebang. Number one, carbon credits have gone wrong many times, so how do we know biodiversity credits won't? Invasive trees have been planted, monocultures have been created, and biodiversity has been depleted in the past due to carbon credit schemes prioritizing profit generation. And restoring biodiversity is a lot more complex in many senses than simply sucking up carbon. It's difficult to quantify different parts of an ecosystem when they all work together to make a whole, let alone trying to assign something as socially constructed as financial value to any one part of it. 2. The whole system of natural capital incentivizes and encourages land ownership, but takes no account of the social issues this creates. In the UK, for example, according to Shrubsole, half of England is owned by just 25,000 landowners, who make up less than 1% of the total population. And according to the campaign Right2Roam, we can only walk freely across 8% of England. 8%! So whilst landowners and companies are buying and selling and trading credits here and there to profiteer off their land ownership, the majority of people in this country still do not have access to nature or green spaces. And that's not to mention the massive housing and cost of living crisis in the UK. And outside of the UK? Well, in many areas of the world, and rightly so, land ownership is not even a concept that really applies. Indigenous people across many parts of the world have been sharing and communally using land for millennia. I remember a particular article from The Guardian about how an unnamed extractive firm forced the Quechua community out of their land in the Yerra Azul National Park, and then received absolutely nothing from an $87 million carbon credit agreement. 3. Nature is being used as a commodity, as an asset, simply for profit generation, which is not the kind of relationship I think we should be cultivating with nature when trying to solve the ecological crisis. We should be in fact learning from indigenous knowledge and relationships. Our hierarchical view of nature and a hierarchical view of society and each other is how we got here in the first place. Turning everything, including nature and love and happiness, into something that can generate a profit or that must have financial value is not only incredibly dystopic and sad and reminiscent of an Orwellian novel, but is also costing us the health of ourselves and the planet. Exponential and continual growth can simply not work because our planet is finite. I think what irks me the most about this whole thing is that the people who are supposed to be the ones fixing the planet and who have dedicated lives of experience, knowledge and passion to do so are the ones who came up with this idea in the first place. They've seen the state of the world, they've experienced it, they understand that we are in a period of ecological collapse as well as a sixth mass extinction crisis, and that the climate is also and also I hope they're aware of the impact that this is having on real human beings across the world right now. I would hope that anyone who labels themselves an environmentalist or an ecologist is well aware of the interconnectedness between humans and nature, between the genocide in Gaza and the mass destruction of nature being perpetuated by the Israelis, or between the deforestation of the Amazon and the perpetuation of mass consumerism for beef, for example, by large chain food companies so that they can keep turning over a profit. Everything is linked: profit generation and the disregard for human lives, inequality and hierarchy, capitalism and ecological and climate destruction. And it's difficult to hold hope in the future when those in my industry, those who are supposed to be helping the planets and the humans who reside upon it, turn to capitalism, the root cause of all of this destruction, as their solution. Is it greed? Is it accidental or purposeful blindness? Is it a lack of critical understanding of social ecology and the way our economic and social structures interplay with nature? It's impossible to know. So what can we do instead? It's actually pretty simple, in my opinion. We are not stuck in a capitalist system. We do not have to feed it with more and more and more. We do not need to generate profit from biodiversity to line the pockets of those who own large companies or own land. Instead, we can place the power back into the hands of the people. Communities should be the ones at the forefront of nature restoration. We need community-owned and community-led rewilding and nature restoration projects, which can directly benefit those communities themselves. In the UK, this could look like community-owned land and spaces that are part rewilded, part local food production, part leisure, entertainment or educational spaces, and part anything else that that community needs or wants from the space. And this is already happening. There's a small community in Scotland called Langholm, who now legally own 10,500 acres of the nearby Tarras Valley and Langholm Moor. This is the largest community-owned nature restoration project in the UK. They are now working hard to help the climate, biodiversity and their own community by running educational programs with their local schools and ranger training courses, creating wetland and starting a tree nursery, restoring peatland, using the 6 on-site homes to house local people, improving visit infrastructure and managing an existing sheep farm so as trying to make it more sustainable. Imagine if more communities owned their local land directly. They could use it for their local as well as more global needs through collective decision making, and wouldn't need to rely on credits, landowners, or the whims of profiteering companies. Community-owned orchards and other community-owned agricultural schemes could produce local, healthy, fresh food for a community, whilst also improving biodiversity. Community-owned water sources could supply clean water to that community whilst also improving local biodiversity. Community-owned renewable energy projects could provide power to local communities whilst the base and the surroundings of those energy infrastructures could be rewarded, thus also improving local biodiversity. Community-owned forests could be managed sustainably for forestry and foraging. Community-owned peatlands could be used for carbon sequestration, and community-owned coastlines could be used for sustainable fishing or recreation. And of course the possibilities are endless. And hopefully we will come to a time where all of nature can be restored and redirected in usage for the benefit of a community. Not because there's financial value or profit in it, but simply because we want to. Because, after all, humans are a part of nature, just as nature is a part of us. So I haven't posted in a while, and I've actually been mulling over whether to create and post this video, simply because it could probably harm my career. Not only is it controversial, but also a lot of rewilding projects in the UK seem to be transitioning to a system where they can make use or benefit of these kind of credit schemes. Luckily, most of my videos only get about 200 views, so unless one of you happens to be a nature finance bro, I think I'm safe. For reference, and just in case some people misunderstood what this video was about, I'm not saying that rewilding projects shouldn't be making money. Of course, rewilding projects have to make money to survive in this kind of world and this kind of economy. I know this very well from first-hand experience. I think it's really important that rewilding projects do find ways to creatively make money to be able to keep doing what they're doing. I simply find it disheartening when those with influence, power and money in my industry take advantage of inherently capitalist systems such as credits and tokens to finance their own companies. This might work in a tongue-in-cheek, using capitalism against itself kind of way until we can dismantle the system, but as far as I can see, these projects genuinely believe that assigning credits to the improvement of nature to generate a profit is going to be the answer to all of our woes. Anyway, peace out, nature bros.